Almost 10 days of protests outside Delaney Hall. Some lawmakers and protesters allege the facility has inedible food, dirty conditions, and lacks access to medical care.
They are being unfairly treated in there, unhumane conditions, and that needs to end. Why would anyone want anyone's family member to go through that? There's women and children inside.
I'm sick of my students getting put into concentration camps. Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
You all saw the thumbnail, Ossoff's rally and the ICE facility controversy, right? So how did an immigration detention center become important enough that a major American city now has riot police, a curfew, members of Congress touring the facility, people on hunger strikes, and Congress and nightly clashes outside? How did that happen? How does that happen in the United States? This scene, how does that happen? How did we get here? Because what we're watching right now outside of Delaney Hall, just outside Newark, New Jersey, is not normal. A country is not supposed to live in permanent outrage, permanent fear, permanent division, where every issue feels like a survival tool and every disagreement feels like war. That's not healthy democracy. That's emotional exhaustion being normalized as politics. This ain't just another protest anymore. This feels like a country that's emotionally burning out in real time. And the thing that makes the situation so explosive that both sides genuinely believe that they're defending America. That's why the emotions are so intense. One side looks at Delaney Hall and says, families, human suffering, fear, people being detained, government outreach, possible abuses, and a system they think has gone too far. And the other side looks at Delaney Hall and sees law enforcement, border control, national security, immigration laws finally being enforced, and a country trying to restore order. Two completely different emotional realities standing in the exact same space. And honestly, that's what scares me most about America right now. Not the disagreement. America has always had disagreements. What scares me is that Americans don't even emotionally understand each other anymore. People don't just disagree. People think the other side is dangerous. I heard that the other day. A threat to the country itself. And once politics reaches that level, that emotional level, everything is about to escalate. Okay? Let me play this clip. Finish playing this clip.
I'm just like every other American watching TV, getting pissed off watching all these people over here attack our ICE agents, and they're doing the job that President Trump had overwhelmingly won his election.
Okay. Let's understand what's happening here. A city now has a curfew around an immigration detention center. Make that shit make sense. Think about how serious this is sounding. What's happening in our country? Curfews, riot police, mounted officers, Congress members touring facilities, reports of hunger strikes, families outside the gates, nightly clashes, pepper spray, rubber bullets. And this is all happening inside the United States. That should tell people something important about where this country is emotionally right now. Because immigration stopped being just about immigration years ago. This thing became bigger than immigration itself. Now immigration represents fear, identity, economics, culture, race, security, political power, and the fear of losing control of our country. That's why people are screaming at each other outside these facilities, because this issue became emotionally symbolic. People project all of their fears onto this. Fear of losing the country, fear of losing control, fear of the government, demographic changes, instability, cruelty, chaos. That's why the temperature is so high here. And social media makes it even worse. It don't even make it better because outrage gets rewarded now. Fear gets rewarded. Anger, escalation, all that goofy shit. The loudest voices go viral. The angriest clips spread the fastest. And the most emotional, explosive moments dominate the internet. So Americans are living inside a nonstop emotional stimulation politically right now. In every instance, every eventuality, that energy spills into the real world. That's what Delaney Hall feels like. Not just a detention facility. It's not just a detention facility. A pressure point for all the fear, exhaustion, anger, division building up inside this country. Let me add this. Give it to you here. Hold on. Let me take one off. Hold on. Okay. Here we go. He's a medic. They're screaming that he's a medic, that he's a medical doctor. The man said they're doing the job Trump overwhelmingly won this election for. Trump didn't win the election to do this. Trump won the election to enforce immigration. He didn't overwhelmingly win the election for this. And he didn't overwhelmingly win the election. He only won 47% of the electorate. He didn't win the overall country. A lot of people stayed home. A lot of people voted for Kamala. A lot of people didn't vote at all. So, no, the overwhelming majority of the country did not vote for this. And whether people like it or not, that statement that man made, it matters politically. Trump overwhelmingly won this election for this. But that's not what they voted for. Because Trump absolutely campaigned on aggressive immigration enforcement. I give you that. Mass deportations, ICE crackdown, detention, expansion, border security, federal enforcement. I get all that. He didn't hide any of that. So his supporters are looking at these protests saying, what exactly are people shocked about? This is what voters voted for. This is law and order. This is not what they voted for. And Democrats need to understand that emotion exists whether they agree with it or not. And a whole lot of other Americans genuinely believe the immigration system has been broken for years at the exact same time. Republicans better understand something too. Millions of Americans are looking at these scenes and feeling deeply disturbed emotionally. Curfews, riot police, people yelling, concentration camps, medical personnel getting attacked, families outside the gates, allegations of hunger strikes, pregnant teens, pregnant kids, bad condition. Those visuals hit people emotionally, whether Republicans want to admit it or not. This is not what most people voted for. This is not what most people voted for. Okay? Nobody trusts anybody anymore. The government says conditions are fine. Activists say conditions are terrible. Police say protesters escalated things. Protesters say police escalated things. Everybody thinks the other side is lying low and lying. And once trust collapses in this society, everything starts becoming unstable emotionally. And people are honestly exhausted about this right now. This should not be happening in America. This right here should not be happening in America. We're tired of waking up every single day, and it's another emergency, another outrage, another screaming match, another thing we're all supposed to panic about. This is wild. People are mentally burnt out. And what scares me is that this no longer feels like it's a temporary thing. It feels permanent, like America settling into permanent emotional conflict. And once a country normalizes scenes like this, riot police, curfews, nightly clashes, citizens screaming at each other in the street, eventually people stop seeing it as shocking. They become immune. That's dangerous because countries usually break emotionally before they break politically. And I think we're watching the emotional break happen in real time here in America. Now, let me be clear about this though. The country has the right to enforce immigration law. We get that. Everybody gets that. Every country on earth has borders. We get that. Nobody is upset about immigration. Nobody's upset about deportation. That's not what we're upset about. I wish you goofy people would get that through your head. Music for days. I wish you would get that through your goofy head. We are not upset about immigration. We are upset with people dying in immigration. We're upset with young girls getting pregnant in immigration. We're upset that families are being separated for no reason. We're upset that people are getting deported to countries they didn't come from. We're upset because of nobody getting due process or not getting due process like they're supposed to. We're upset of those things. I wish you guys would grow up when it comes to this. Every time we turn around, you want to say nobody got upset when Obama did it. Because Obama didn't violate people's laws when he did it. Obama didn't have people killed or shot on camera. Obama didn't have those things happen. Please get into the game. This is immature talk. I hate to have conversations with people who have immature thoughts when it comes to this, when they know better. Okay? As I said, I think we're having an emotional break happen in real time. Now, let me be clear. A country has like I said, they have a right to enforce their immigration law. Every country on earth has borders. Every country decides who can enter and who can stay. But what Americans are arguing over now is how this enforcement is happening legally or illegally. Who is being detained? What conditions exist inside these facilities? And whether this country is losing part of its humanity in the process. That's the real argument underneath all this screaming. Underneath all this goofy shit that's going on and people watching things happen in real time. Okay? In real time. Okay? One side hears human rights. The other side hears open borders. One side hears law enforcement. The other side hears authoritarianism. That's why nobody can even talk calmly about this issue anymore. Everything immediately escalates beyond what it needs to escalate. Okay? People who are going through legal processes, jobs, and families. This is what's going on with this immigration. And this is another part of the argument people keep fighting over. Who exactly is being detained here? Because immigration advocates keep arguing that many detainees are people with family, jobs, hearings, going through the legal process. Meanwhile, supporters of aggressive enforcement argue if somebody is in violation of immigration law, that system has the right to detain and process them. And again, two completely different moral frameworks. That's why nobody can find common ground anymore. Everybody is arguing from completely different emotional starting points. And honestly, that may be the biggest crisis of all. America doesn't even agree on what the fairness in immigration looks like. And social media don't help it at all because fear spreads faster than the calm. Anger spreads faster than the nuance. Outrage spreads faster than the facts. So every issue immediately becomes the country's collapsing, democracy is ending, America's being authoritarianism. Look at this. This right here, there's no reason for that to be happening in America. This is what the talk we received from Donald Trump brought to this country. That emotional escalation. We didn't have this kind of stuff under Biden or Obama or George Bush, as a matter of fact. We didn't have this kind of stuff. This on the TV every night, fighting. People fighting the police, people fighting ICE, people doing all. We didn't have that on when they were presidents. This emotional escalation is becoming constant now because Donald Trump put it to the forefront. And eventually people psychologically adapt to permanent outrage. That's dangerous for democracy because democracies require people believing, I disagree with you, but you still belong here. And America feels like it's losing that emotional understanding. That's what Delaney Hall represents to me. Not just an immigration facility that's in peril, but a snapshot of a country emotionally struggling with itself. Okay. And if you want to understand how all that anger, exhaustion, fear, and emotional division gets turned directly into political power, you only had to look at Georgia and Ossoff's, U.S. Senator Ossoff's speech. Because while people are screaming outside this detention facility, centers in New Jersey, politicians like Ossoff are already trying to channel all that frustration into an election, into the next election. Okay? So they trying to send a message. Democrats is trying to send a message, not just to Republicans, not just to Trump, not just to MAGA, but to the entire country. Okay? To the entire country. They're trying to send a message. Okay? Georgia is politically alive. Hold on. Let me put this on the screen. Okay. Georgia is politically alive. And the rally that featured him and Keisha Lance Bottoms and the mayor of Atlanta, this was not some sleepy campaign event. This felt like Democrats trying to rebuild emotional momentum in one of the biggest battleground states here in America. And this timing matters because while this rally was happening in Georgia, this controversy continued to grow over in Delaney Hall detention facility and immigration enforcement, where voting right was bad. We had voting right battles, ICE facility, rising gas, electric, food, healthcare struggles, and a political atmosphere that honestly feels more tense every single month. That is the backdrop hanging over Georgia right now. And us Democrats, these Democrats, Ossoff, the U.S. Senator, looked like they were trying to tap directly into that frustration. So we're going to play a little bit of it here.
Now, Atlanta, these crowds, they keep growing. Something is happening in Georgia. Every backyard, every living room is full. And crowds like this leave no doubt that Georgia is ready to do our part again to save our republic. Are you ready to win, Atlanta? Something is finally waking up. Do you feel it? Turn to your neighbor, say, I'm awake. Say, I'm all in. Now, many of you are here because you recognize the urgency of opposition to this unprecedented corruption and incompetence. And you recognize the stakes of these midterm elections when Georgia's voice will be decisive once again.
So, now, these crowds are growing. And that right there matters because that is not normal campaign language. That is movement. Let's get up and move. Let's get up and change the country language. That's We think the country is in danger language. We think this election is existential language. And whether people agree with the Democrats or not, Republicans better understand something. That kind of emotional energy that Ossoff is fueling is exactly what helped flip Georgia blue before. And that Tallarico is doing the same thing in Texas. Because, see, Georgia stopped being just another southern state a long time ago. Now Georgia is symbolic. Every election cycle here, it becomes national news. It just does. Every voting law becomes national news. Every district map becomes news. Every immigration fight becomes news. Georgia has become a symbol for the political fight over what America is becoming. And Democrats tonight that night were clearly trying to reignite that Georgia can save the country again language. So Keisha Knight, she came out and she was talking about healthcare, hospitals, economic pain, voting rights, all that stuff. And honestly, that is probably the smartest lane the Democrats can take right now, because people are tired of the chaos that this administration has wrought, tired of the inflation that this administration has brought upon us, tired of struggling to stay afloat while grocery prices keep climbing higher and higher. People are exhausted watching politicians scream at each other every day, while ordinary people are sitting at kitchen tables trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills, buy their food, buy gas, and survive another month. I ain't never met so many people who got problems piecing their rent money together in all my days. And I know something too. Democrats at this rally with Ossoff, were not talking like polished corporate politicians. All of those people that spoke at that rally, they sounded angry, especially Ossoff. And that matters, because Republicans dominated emotional political language for years. Because this is the playbook of the Republican. Let's call out the dog whistles and say, we need to protect y'all from those black and brown people. We need to protect y'all from the immigrants. And every time the Republicans and people who are not politically aware always fall into the trap and believe that dog whistle language that the Republicans always put out there. But these Democrats sounded like they're done trying to sound calm and polite all the time. They sounded like they believed in political warfare now. And honestly, that probably connects emotionally with a lot of viewers, a lot of voters, especially in Georgia, where politics feels nonstop all the time.
And when not posting, he's been trying to rob us. Have you seen it? He sued the U.S. government he commands for $10 billion. Then he settled the suit with himself to create a $1.8 billion slush fund so he can cut checks to cronies and Jan 6 foot soldiers. The same men who sacked the Capitol to seize the presidency for Donald Trump, who beat police officers with flagpoles, built a gallows on the Capitol lawn, and hunted the vice president to lynch him. Donald Trump's brown shirts. He pardoned them, and now he wants you to pay him. He's trying to put his face on the money. Did you see that?
See, because that's escalation language. That right there is escalation language. That's not political soft talk. That's the gloves are off. But look at the irony here. Look at the irony here. We just spent all this time talking about how emotionally overheated this country has become. And then Ossoff gets on stage and uses language designed to emotionally escalate the situation even more. Why? Because politicians understand something. They understand that emotional intensity works. Fear works. Anger works. Outrage works. That's what drives engagement now. That's what drives the turnout. And Democrats are clearly trying to build emotional urgency on their side, the way Republicans build it on theirs. That's what that rally felt like. Now, one of the smartest things also did do was connect politics directly to everyday financial pain, because that's where elections are actually won. Not online, not on Twitter, not inside these think tanks and political bubbles, right? Our elections are won at the grocery store, the gas station, the pharmacy, the rent office. That's where people decide whether they're angry enough, frustrated enough, pissed off enough, and exhausted enough to finally show up and vote these suckers out. Hopefully they mad enough that they're trying to vote these suckers out.
See, Georgians are sick of being ripped off, taken for granted, disrespected. Because we're told a story that if we work hard and play by the rules, we'll thrive. That no matter who we are or where we start, the grind will pay off. But for too many across our state, this story just isn't true. Groceries, rent, insurance, taxes, the car note, the power bill, the math just does not work. And it feels like no matter how hard you hustle, you can't get ahead. The culture wars are exploited to divide us, while our hospitals close, while hedge funds buy up all the houses in our neighborhood, while we have to pay $3,000 for an ambulance. And Georgia is in the midst of a healthcare emergency. It's an emergency that some of our so-called leaders dress up as normal. They try to numb us to the suffering they've caused. They've continued to block Medicaid expansion while Georgia lost 21 hospitals in 20 years. And then last year they gutted Medicaid nationally. Listen to this, 40% of all Georgia kids are covered by Medicaid. 50% of all Georgia births are covered by Medicaid. 70% of all Georgia seniors in nursing homes are covered by Medicaid. Already one labor and delivery unit in Georgia has closed, citing those Medicaid cuts, with more pain coming for hospitals and clinics and nursing homes. How amazing is it?
Right. So groceries, rent, insurance, all that is high. That right there probably connected harder than 50 policies each is from anybody else, because people know the math ain't fucking mathing. Everybody feels it every time they buy groceries, every time they pay insurance, rent, look in their checking account. Y'all know y'all can go to the bank and overdraft on y'all checking account, and you're robbing people to pay Paul. And this is where the Democrats may actually have an opening politically. If they can successfully frame Republicans as more chaos, instability, economic pain, and emotional exhaustion, Georgia becomes competitive again. And this is where the ICE facility controversy hanging over all of us becomes politically important, because immigration has become emotionally explosive in America. Republicans are trying to lean hard into it. We done with the immigrant. Don't nobody give a damn about immigrant. If you can't afford your rent and you can't afford no food and you can't afford to pay your car note, don't nobody give a damn about immigration right now. We got bigger fish to fry. Republicans are leaning hard into that border security, detention, deportation, and law and order bullshit. Democrats are increasingly trying to frame detention controversies and ICE crackdowns as humanitarian and moral failures, which they are, which I think they are. Okay, and the Democrats in that speech are trying to connect emotionally to the immigration policy and connect it to the human suffering that is happening because of the immigration policy. Now, whether people agree with that framing or not, it's clearly the direction the Democrats are moving towards politically. And honestly, that rally did not feel moderate. It felt emotional, aggressive, energized. It felt like Democrats believed this election could reshape Georgia all the way around. But the bigger issue hanging over everything that they were saying is exhaustion. Everybody is exhausted, squeezed, manipulated, felt lied to. Everybody feels financially stressed. Every person that Donald Trump got to vote for him in 2024, his has eroded. Every demographic has eroded away from the Republican Party because it was too much, too soon, too catastrophic. Everything catastrophic. Okay? Catastrophic. That's why these rallies matter. Not because rallies themselves decide election, but because emotional momentum matters. Energy matters, turnout matters, and Democrats were clearly trying to rebuild on all of those things. This is my last video.
That the most powerful nation on earth proclaims as its core values that all are created equal, with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, no matter how humble our beginnings, no matter our ancestry, no matter when we arrived on these shores. In Atlanta, a wave is building. The kind of wave that comes once a generation. When people have been pushed too far and they decide all at once, all together, that enough is enough. So let's give them a united Georgia. Let's save the country again. Let's make sure they hear it all the way down at Mar-a-Lago that Georgia will bow to no king. Thank you. God bless you. Let's get to work. Thank you so much.
So, hold on. Let me take this off. Okay. So, and that line, that last line right there tells you exactly how Democrats are framing this election. Not Republican versus Democrat, but democracy versus authoritarianism. That's the emotional framework they're building. And whether voters buy it or not, one thing became very clear as he was speaking. Georgia Democrats are no longer campaigning like they think this is a normal political movement. They're campaigning like they believe the future direction of the country itself is on the line. This is the way the Democrats are framing it. And honestly, that energy is probably going to make Georgia one of the nastiest and most important political battlegrounds in America all over again. But we got to step back from the campaign stage and look at the bigger picture, okay? The politicians want us to be angry because angry voters show up. The algorithm wants us outraged because outraged users stay online. From the gates of Delaney Hall to the stages in Atlanta, the message from the political machine is the same. The other side is the enemy you must defeat to survive. But if this country keeps trading empathy for outrage, if we keep adapting to this permanent emotional warfare that they got going on, eventually people will stop acting like they live in the same country. That's the part that should scare everybody. This right here, this picture, we shouldn't be seeing this kind of thing happen in the United States. We shouldn't be seeing this at all. People pitted against ICE agents. I had never even seen or met an ICE agent. Didn't know what, how, when, or why. Why is it that they're so visible now? I think this president went too far. I think he went too far, and a lot of people think he went too far. And that's the problem. He went too far, and they continue to go too far. They first came out with Doge, came out with the tariffs, came out with dismantling DEI, came out with the immigration, came out with killing people, came out with the detention facilities, came out with the alligator Alcatraz, came out with the war. This president did too much. He did too many negative things. Came out with the big, beautiful bill that does nothing for the poor. Raised the gas prices, raised the food prices, took away health care. All of these things. all of these things. And it really showed you who was patriotic, who was patriotic, who was loyal to the Constitution, and who was just loyal to the man. Were you one of those people that were loyal to the Constitution, or were you one of those people loyal to a party or loyal to a man? This is the problem that we're having right now. Two fundamentally different viewpoints. I believe it was a moral failure to put Donald Trump in the White House. It was a moral failure on the part of Republicans. Any Republican that voted for Donald Trump, you were a moral failure as far as I was concerned. And a lot of people feel that way, and we just can't have those kind of people in our life with voting for a person, and it's a moral failure for voting for this person. Because what you did was you upended the country. You upended the Constitution. You said none of these things were important. Other people's feelings were unimportant. Other people's lives, daily lives, their way of living was unimportant to you. That's why a lot of people who are Republicans lose their family members over this, because it's a moral failure. We look at it as a moral failure on your part. Okay. But it is what it is. We had Ossoff in Georgia doing his thing. This is the Delaney Hall controversy. Outside of it, we have to figure out how we're going to make this end. And the only way we can figure out how to make this end, and to a certain extent, is to get all of the people that are in the White House that are condoning this out of the White House. And people have to understand it's a moral choice. Whether you morally want this to continue your country down this way, down this path, and most of us, 53% of us, the bulk of the country, says they're not willing to do this anymore. 53 plus are not willing to do this anymore. So, if you like my commentary, or you appreciate the show that I put on, you appreciate my commentary, my show, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock again. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe, and I appreciate you guys showing up. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate it.